Hi, my name is Yvgeniy, and I'm going to be teaching you how to make and animate lightsabers in Adobe AfterEffects. The first thing you want to do is open up the program, go into Composition, New Composition, set your dimensions and duration, and then go ahead and import your file. Now, I'm working with an image here. You're probably going to be working with a video file, but for the purposes of this tutorial, it really makes no difference. So, go ahead and drag your file into the timeline, go into Layer, New, Solid, make composition size, and make sure that it's set to white. Now that you've got your mask layer ready, pluck out the eye icon to make it invisible, zoom in if you have to, and grab the pen tool to trace over the blade of what will eventually be your lightsaber. Pluck the eye icon back in, and as you can see, it created a mask over top of the blade. Now, before you can move on to the stage of creating the glow and the color of the lightsaber, you have to animate it, and I'll get into the reasons for why later. In the meantime, just make sure the layer is highlighted and click little arrows next to the layer, and then hit the little clock icon next to Mask Path. Now, what that does is it sets a keyframe at frame 0. And that remembers the position of the points of the pen tool and the layer in general. So you can drag the timeline cursor anywhere in the timeline and then make your alterations. So for instance, grab this point and drag it to the side, make it fan out. The great thing about After Effects is that it then fills the gaps in between. The two keyframes store the information and position of the points, and the rest is filled in. And you can pretty much complete the whole animation of your video in this way by setting keyframes, and it'll eliminate the need to do frame-by-frame animation, which saves a whole lot of time in the long run. So, once you've completed your animation, you can go ahead and move on to the next stage. So, create a new composition, keep the settings the same, grab the bottom layer here, and hit Control-C to copy it, and Control-V to paste it in Composition 2. You no longer need that in the first composition, so you can just delete it, and you're left with just the blade shape. Now, go into Layer, New, Solid, and make it black. The reason we're doing that is because blackness is seen by After Effects as transparency, which will be important later on when you want the blade, when you want the blackness to be transparent over the top of the image of Composition 2. So drag the black layer beneath the white layer so the blade can be seen, and then duplicate that layer 3 times. Now, as you can see, the shortcut key for that is Control-D. So you can just hit Control-D 2 more times, and you've got 4 layers, 4 copies of the same layer. So hit the little arrow icons, and then look at Mask Feather. Set the first top layer to 1. Set the next one to about 15. Set the third layer to around 30. And set the fourth layer to around 50. Now, as you can see, what that did was create the glow for the blade, and that looks very much like a lightsaber now, except without the colors. Now, the point I'd like to make here is that these settings will vary. I'm working with a 720 by 480 image, which is pretty much the standard dimensions for any DV video, so that's probably what you're going to be working with. But depending upon the size of your video, which can differ, and the size of the actual lightsaber, you're going to want to change those settings to suit your purposes. So, go into Composition 2, grab Composition 1, and throw it on top. Now, it's black, so you want to make sure the layer is highlighted, and then go into Layer Blending Mode and set it to Screen. Now, as you can see, that makes it transparent, and the blade is now seen on top of the image. The only thing that's left now is the glow. But before I go into that, I'd like to explain the reason that you have to animate beforehand. I'm sure it's kind of obvious at this point, but the fact that there are 4 copies of the same layer means that if you make shape changes on one layer, they will not necessarily apply to the 3 other layers. You could, of course, later, if you want to make changes, delete the 3 layers here and reduplicate them again, but you still want to do the actual animation portion of the lightsaber before you do the glow effect and the color effect, which I'm about to get to here. The way you would go about that is go into Effect, Color Correction, and Color Balance. You've got 3 colors available, green, blue, and red. I'm going to go with red, so set the midtones to about 100, and the highlights to about 50. That looks pretty good. As you can see now, this looks very much like your Star Wars lightsaber. And if you go to the timeline here, it applies that effect, the glow, and the color to all the frames automatically. And this is how you would make a lightsaber video if you wanted to. So, sure, you'd like to see the method in action, so I'm going to show you an example of a video that used this very method to do the animation. Well, that pretty much completes this tutorial. Hopefully you've learned something here, and I wish you all luck in making your very own lightsaber animations.